Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Dan Ball and welcome to another episode of the Wellness Academy podcast. On our show here at the Wellness Academy, it's my job to distill all things wellness and attempt to break down from all our different coaches, experts and guests their wisdom and knowledge so you can apply it to your own life. I'm unbelievably excited to bring to you our guest today. Our guest is Seb Kane. He's the owner and kind of head coach of fitness improvement therapy in Sheffield here in the UK. He's a kinesiologist, a neuro psychologist, a strength and conditioning coach, a sports massage therapist, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. I end up describing him to my friends as the local Gandalf the White. Like, the guy is a fantastically knowledgeable dude, and his podcast did not disappoint. It didn't disappoint me or any. Super excited for you guys to listen. Check it out on YouTube, everywhere you find your podcasts, and please listen, subscribe, and if you're happy as I am, check us out with a 5-star review and enjoy. Hey Seb.
How you doing, Dan?
Welcome to the Wellness Academy podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I just said before we started recording, I've been really excited that the first thing I have to ask you, I normally say to people, give us your bio. I actually want you to do, for my benefit, if for nobody else's, I would like you to try and tell me, what do you do? Because I say to people, they go, what does he do then? Like, is he a sports massage therapist? And I'm like, he's a wizard. He's Albus Dumbledore.
You're not the first though, Dan. Everyone refers to me as either a white witch or a wizard, and it all comes down to energy. I've always said that. I studied kinesiology, so I'm a kinesiologist, which is the study of the brain and the body, and I'm a neuro psychologist, so I just combine the two together. Okay. So hence.
But are you a chiropractor as well?
The kinesiology allowed me to practice applied kinesiology, which is chiropractic work, but it's working with energy. So I didn't do the chiropractic, I did the applied kinesiology side, which is chiropractors now do that to do all the muscle testing, to test where energy is needed and for manipulation, to correct the electrical input to the body to now fire off a certain muscle. So,
and manipulation is what layman's like me say is the cracking me and twisting me in half.
Well, you can manipulate fascia, you can manipulate muscle, you can manipulate joints. We do whatever's needed for the individual. So we look at the individual and we say, right, okay.
And are you a physio?
No.
Are you a sports massage therapist?
I'm a sports massage therapist.
So from now on in future, I can tell people you're a kinesiologist, you're a neuroscientist, neuropsychologist, and a sports massage therapist.
Strength conditioning coach who I trained under Charles Poliquin for the biosignature modulation.
I never knew that.
Which I did, yeah. So I got to meet the guy and I studied under him as well. So that was brilliant to get my strength conditioning from someone like that. Yeah.
Which, so having read Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans, which is the first book he did once doing the podcast, there was Charles Poliquin and Pavel Tsatsouline. Have you heard of him?
No.
So they're both in the book. They're both similar characters in that they're both, I think, from Eastern Bloc countries. Brought kettlebells to the Western Hemisphere. Was that Charles or was that?
No, Charles was more. He was the one to really bring structural integration. So it was more posture. He brought into strength conditioning. That's what really elevated his athletes. One
of those two people I just really should know this as well, passed away last year.
That's Charles.
Yeah. Because I remember Tim was gutted. And so obviously a vast proportion of the population.
I mean, looking back now, in terms of his training strategies, really, really good. In terms of his nutritional strategies, in terms of supplementation, I didn't really connect with that as much as his powerlifting and strength conditioning side of stuff.
Was it another one of those guys there's a strength training protocol, and you can tell me if it sounds like it's him, and this was in the 4-hour body, I think, was to deadlift to the knee and drop from the knee. Does that sound like that might be Charles? I think it is. Because I basically remember going to somebody
Charles was massively into sort of quarter reps, third reps, half reps.
In like a stereotypical Globo gym, I asked somebody, would you mind if I drop the bar from my knee? And the guy said, well, that's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to say, the guy I found this out from knows a little more, but obviously there's no point me saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I can now, we'll have to write this down afterwards, but I now know what you do. For people who are listening, who are thinking like, why does the guy care what Seb does? But it's because obviously I've now been seeing you.
Yeah.
We speculate something close to 10 years. And every single person I've ever tried to direct your way, and I've done it badly, because like I say, I've never been able to describe what you do, but you've fixed me on multiple occasions. You helped me originally once I'd lost a significant amount of weight doing a diet again from a Tim Ferriss book, actually put weight on for the first time in my life in a good way, like strength, muscle size, blah, blah, blah. But why don't you give anyone who's listening an idea of how you came to be Gandalf the White?
I think the study of energy, my first experience with it, I was born in Afghanistan. So I came to this country when I was 3 years old.
So this was when, for reference, like how, in
1983. So May 1983, I arrived
in the UK.
In the UK. My brother was 5 years older, so it'd be 7.5. So obviously coming to this country, born over there, I mean, totally different culture, like that. And my dad was always into fitness, Danny, to be honest. You know, he'd always, from such a young age, he'd always take us for runs even before school. And he says, you know, in this country, son, you know, we got to a certain age, he says, it's about these, it's not about... But no, because over there it's guns. Oh. So it's not about, you don't carry them here. It's about these. Oh, so, you know, he took us to martial arts, and then, you know, that's how we started into sort of kickboxing. And my brother had a few fights as well, and I refused. I didn't want to do that. And then that's when the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side came in. The wrestling came in before that, and it's huge in Afghanistan, the wrestling side. So that's why, you know, fitness was always a huge part, because my dad was always encouraged it, which was obviously brilliant. And then from that, my dad, because of culture, always encouraged doctors, because doctors in that country earn a lot of money. So I've competed at quite high level sports. So I played semi-pro football for Doncaster Rovers and Macclesfield Town.
What position did you play?
Striker. So I started off at right wing and then I was striker. But
you must have been good though to play for them, because no one will know without. Well, but you're not the. How tall are you?
5'7".
Yeah. So being 5'7" and making it into football.
Yeah.
That. Okay, I didn't realise you were that good.
Yeah, so and then I went to school with, you know, Wes Brown, who played for United, so we were on Manchester Boys books. He got called up for England and stuff, but the difference was he wasn't any better than some of the guys. I would say even me, and if you spoke to him even today, we wouldn't ever admit he was any better. The difference between him is he never missed a training session. If it was snowing, if it was raining, this guy would never miss a training session. Looking back now from the coaching world, you could mould the potential of that individual. He's got it there. Whereas someone like us may be gifted, worked hard for it, but not as hard as someone the coaches would perceive.
Yeah, I think Wes Brown was one of... I support Man United, and I remember Wes Brown, he was never the defender that Sir Alex played week in, week out, but he was a phenomenal... Yeah. He would step in when the main guy was injured, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
and that's why
he would never ever miss
But his work
ethic
was definitely there,
yeah. So growing around sport and stuff, and then obviously my dad, it was time for my A levels. Yeah. And my GCSEs, sorry, and me dad had to get called into school because he was like, look, he needs to either pick between football or he needs to pick between education. Okay. So my dad said, look, I've played football, son. It's easy. If you get an injury, that's it. Your career's over. Yeah. I would stick to education. So then that's when my football career was ended. So after that, it was I chose the education.
Okay. And how old were you when your dad came to you with that choice?
So I was doing my GCSE, so 15.
So it's quite, but like most 15-year-olds would go, I'm doing the football.
Yeah, but when your father's from Afghanistan, Danny, there's a level of respect that we have to adhere to. And this is where a lot of the level of respect for the elders, even if you disagree with it, growing up, you've always got to respect your elders. That's just a cultural sort of system that's really built in.
Yeah.
It's only as you start to get older, get familiarised with the Western world, you know what's right and wrong. So, over there, it's the elders get a lot of respect. Whereas I find in this country, you don't really have as much as that.
Definitely. It's not a cultural thing.
No.
I think it maybe was 50 years ago.
Yeah,
or
it
more.
would have been.
But now. Yeah, okay. So you're 15 and your dad basically says to you, pick education.
Yeah.
So you did?
So I picked education, did my GCSEs, obviously would still play the odd football, be called up for 5-side competitions and stuff, and from then, Danny, I just went into education, started doing my A-levels, passed my GCSEs, passed my A-levels. And then I went to uni to do computer animation. So I went to Teesside Uni to do computer animation. Dad really, really proud. Obviously, I'm like, I don't even know how I even got here. I should be playing football. And I still love my dad. I understand where he was coming from and everything. But he even says to this day now he's realised how much footballers get paid. And he was just like, I don't know why. He's like, you were the only one who could have made it.
Cheers, Dad.
Yeah.
What's your dad's name?
Jahan Seb, yeah. So, and then from there...
Cheers for your mistake, Jahan, because I'd probably still be broken if you'd have made him play football.
So, and then from there, and I went to the gym for the first time when I went to uni, so I was 18 at this point. And I started lifting weights. I've never lifted weights at this point. I've always done, body weight or done the usual sort of running and jogging and sport-specific drills for football. Went to Teesside, I started lifting weights, and I was just really... Some of the guys there and the coaches in the gym were like, you're just genetically really, really strong. Have you ever thought about competing in the university powerlifting championships? And I was like, no. It's like, what are the lifts? And
what are power lifts?
So they've taught me into it. So I ended up winning that at the British University Championship, and then I got through to the British Powerlifting Championships. So it was under 21s.
Yeah.
And then I came second in that, which was great. And that's being drug-free.
So deadlift,
squats,
back squat, and bench press. Do you remember your lift totals?
Yeah, I remember my bench.
Which was?
166.
Whoa! Yeah. What weight?
Yeah, I was 82. Yeah.
Wow, so more than double body weight bench press.
Yeah.
Do you remember your squat or your deadlift?
Yeah, my deadlift, I picked 206. So, yeah, that was...
So that's 2.5 times body weight, isn't it?
Bear in mind, I'd only been training a year for weights. I had never touched any weights at this point.
Okay.
But I think a lot of that... Compare all my training to anything, I tell you the worst for me, and I think this had a lot to do with the conditioning. When my dad's taxi never ever, because he was a taxi driver, it refused to start, and obviously we would go for runs every morning. Well, my brother was at uni at this point in Sheffield. Well, who had to push the cab? At 16, me.
Okay.
So I'm pushing this cab every time, and it would start, but this specific time, it just didn't start, and by the end of it, I've pushed it around the block, and honestly, mate, I thought my lungs would just...
Is there any of that, because would I be correct with the stereotype? And if I'm not, I'm really not, but it wouldn't shock me though, if there is some ancestral genetics that stereotypically when you think about the Afghani population, it's farming is common.
It's all farming. Yeah, they're
so strength must be in your
huge.
Dad's a strong dude, right?
Yeah, he is a strong dude.
Did he say he boxed?
He's still no. He played a lot of football though.
Okay.
He was wrestling though. He
Wrestling. And yeah, I know you told me he did a martial art.
But he's 72 years old and he'll still go, come on then, let's see how many press-ups you can do. And then he'll go, right, let's see if you can still hold the headstand. And a lot of my training predominantly came from my dad doing that every morning. He's 72 and he'll just stand on his head, which is incredible to see now, you know, especially when I get people in today's world that even in the 20s.
I wouldn't know what, wouldn't have even attempted.
And a lot of the healing for me with all this witchcraft and everything, it's just working with energy, which it has an explanation in terms of, and it's called neurology, that's what, but most people don't understand neurology, you see. So when we have healing in this country, we have specific experts. So we'll have the knee expert, the foot expert, the shoulder expert. We'll have a specific digestion, gastrointestinal expert. And what we've done is we've separated everything. So that foot does not work separate to the knee, to the hip, to the shoulder, which then you understand the nerve pathways that run the spine or the central nervous system is all connected. So we also know that shoulder is also connected to the liver.
Well, so one thing I've always been curious about with this though, so why do you think that so I agree with you that you do end up, like, so you go to your GP, you tell your GP I've got a problem. Stereotypically, the first thing the GP will do is prescribe you medication. Yeah. Or, if it's a big enough problem, prescribe you a referral to a specialist. And that's the bit that you're on about, right? So, doctor, I've got a headache, and the paracetamol aren't working, the cocodamol then don't work, and then whatever's stronger than that doesn't work. And eventually they might go, probably needs to see someone now, and it'll be a specialist. So what made you kind of go against that very integrated system in England and the United Kingdom then? Why did you think?
Because my first experience of healing was back in Afghanistan. So over there, they didn't have doctors. They had just healers. So they'd be like in their 80s, predominantly the older generation. So my brother got bit by a snake and his foot had swollen up. So we went hunting. I was only 10 at this point. And Dad, so he stepped on this snake, it's bit him. Obviously he's gone, ouch. My granddad's then picked up a rock, it's launched at it, landed on its head, killed the snake. Great. The problem was his foot.
The Afghani crocodile done
it's swollen. And obviously fever had started kicking in, so we've taken him back to the house. The village healer, she was called Papo at the time, has come in. The kids around, all my cousins and stuff, had come around. They'd been told to collect some leaves, and she would chant. So it was all sound therapy when I look back now, because obviously we work on vibrational frequencies. So there's just the way your body communicates is purely through signals and chemical signals. There is no other way this body communicates. But we've made everything so complex. So looking back now, all of a sudden the herbs from what the kids had collected from this snake bite literally pull the pus out, and honestly it's as if next day he'd never even been bitten. So that was my first experience of healing. So then over there, it's, you know, the doctors, they make a lot of money from it's, you know, there is no NHS, it's all private work. But then later down the line, you started to get doctors, you know, who
in Afghanistan.
So who would be going out, they would send them because of doctors making a lot of money and everything was farming. So now they want to progress. So they're moving with times. So they would go over to Pakistan and Islamabad, study with the universities there, because Afghanistan didn't have any universities at that point. So I'm 10, they would get that. So now we have doctors.
Just in your opinion, has that been a benefit for Afghanistan or not?
Okay, so I'm not against the medical world when it comes to, say, someone has a car accident, baby born with its intestines on the outside, you know, anything like that. I couldn't do anything for these people. So the medical world, in terms of accidents, let's say, or extreme circumstances, I couldn't do anything for that. What I see as a backward way is the lifestyle choices that individuals make, because this body of ours has the ability to heal anything. So I could have anyone, as you know, who could come into me with 18 years of pain and I can get them out of pain in seconds. That's not the problem, because the nervous system works at 119 meters per second.
And for the people that can't see, I'm nodding my head to agree with you, because
but you're not the only experience. So my business, I've never advertised. You'll never see me really on social media or anything. But I go back to the village healers back in Afghanistan. None of these guys had any social media contact. Everything was through referral. So I've just stuck with the same system, that if I do good by you and create results for you, well, energy is reciprocal. It has to go round. And that's all I've ever done in terms of building. Never needed to. And then all of a sudden this social media comes out and everything. It's like, well, now you've got to get the message out. Well, now it's changed. But taking it back, in terms of the medical model for healing now, it's not, I don't believe in experts. I don't believe in specialists. I think this is a system that we don't fully understand. Research and scientists, even from universities, say we only use 10% brain capacity. So if I said to you, Danny, here's what, you've only got knowledge in doing this with only 10% knowledge, how successful are you going to be? Successful. So this is why we have an epidemic in this country. It's even worse than that now.
If I think about what you're saying up to this point then so far, like if I was listening, I don't have to be listening because I'm thinking it now and I'm sat talking to you, is what do I do then? You know, I'm right on board with you. Like, we've interviewed on our show one of the coaches from Wellness Academy. A previous guest was a lady named Jess, and she's a proponent of the medical model of functional medicine, which I think, if nothing else, at least fits in and has similarities with what I know that you believe. That if you go to a doctor with a problem, it's what are the lifestyle choices that are leading to that problem. So, you know, I've got a bad shoulder. Well, that bad shoulder hasn't just clicked into appearance. You know, the body's got a bad shoulder for a reason. I know one of the things that you've said to me often is the body doesn't make mistakes.
No.
But if I'm going to look at what I can start to do myself, either treat me like someone I've not been to see you before, which is probably a good idea because I probably forget half of what you taught me sometimes anyway. But what might be a handful of things that I would start doing day to day to avoid seeing my doctor?
Okay, well, first of all, let's look at the body, all right, as which is a big thing, because obviously there's a lot of controversy with all this sort of stuff with the body not making mistakes and everything. Well, number one, when you wake up in the morning, Danny, do you press any remote controls for your heart rate to start in the morning?
Of course not.
No. So the pH of your blood, do you ever control that?
No, definitely
not. The digestion, the elimination organs, your eyesight.
What are they? I'm going to sound like an idiot now. What these are? Which is the autonomic nervous system that's responsible for these things? Yes.
Yes, but you can't separate them.
Okay.
You can't separate them, which I'll get into in terms of how the brain functions. So, if you look at the system, so you don't press any remote controls, you don't control, you don't have any control over this.
Definitely not.
So if we look at science and research into this, they predict about 10 quadrillion processes per second happen within this body without you even 10 quadrillion processes per second. So the moment you get a wrist pain, knee pain, or anything like that, we're judging it because it's how we've been conditioned that it's doing something wrong. It's not doing anything wrong. What's happened is our action, and it's adapting to the action of the individual.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So here's how it works. For example, the knee pain, we know that's on the same nerve pathway as the digestion. So anyone with knee pain, 100%, if over time, they will always get digestion problems. So that's called a visceral somatic connection. The same way when someone has a heart attack, they get pain down the left arm. But that's not on the same nerve vortex as the heart. But the body knows on a survival level, I have to save the heart because it's an organ. It's number one. That's the priority of the human design. That's the purpose, is survival and keep balance. So it rushes blood away from the arm to go and heal the heart. So now you get referred pain, which is physical pain. So nothing works independent, but we treat everything as independent.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
And that's the problem.
Okay.
So then now, if we look at posture as a whole, if you think of posture alone, well, you know, the moment there's a muscular imbalance or any physical pain, we have to then look at, there has to be a postural imbalance. And if there's a postural imbalance, it means there's a brain imbalance.
Okay.
But these are all accumulating over time.
So hold that thought.
Yeah.
What you just said, muscular pain, there's a postural imbalance, which is a brain imbalance.
Yeah.
If I put those three things on a piece of paper, the heading, like what part of your knowledge does that come under? Why do you know that? Is that because of kinesiology?
Yeah, kinesiology.
Okay, cool.
Ultimately, but also neuropsychology teaches us, when someone comes in who's on the verge of committing suicide, and I get the child who comes in and his mother's saying to me, look, would you have a word with him? He's tried to commit suicide tomorrow.
Does that happen to you?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. So obviously I'm educating these people on the brains, and this is what we're not doing as youngsters, because you can take all this back to the first physiological function of breathing. So the moment the child came into this world, now we have high rates of autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, ADD, and most of them all come from incorrect breathing from the first stages from when they were born. So that was the first milestone they missed, was breathing, because that's what conditions the brain.
You know me well enough to know that. So I tend to operate on the principle that if someone who I have faith and trust in says something, and giving that thing a go, Danny, if you sleep with some mud under your pillow, I'd probably give it a go, because I've got that much faith and trust in you.
Mud's good, man. We've just got too many antibacterials.
But there are a lot of people that are the opposite of me.
Yeah.
That they have, in my opinion, potentially it's because they have less faith and trust in people.
Yeah.
And I imagine at least one person that sits and listens to what you just said. And what?
And I'll explain.
Yeah, please do.
So here's what we've done. If we look at the first physiological function of breathing, well, if you study any individual with a brain imbalance, these kids are not brain damaged. Autistic kids, dyslexic, they're not brain damaged. They just have one hemisphere which is more dominant than the other, which is hemispheric dominance. Most individuals, when they turn into adults, become more dominant on one side of the brain.
That would make sense.
Also, so we've disconnected these kids. These kids have the ability to rebalance, but we've got to do it through from when the cause of the milestones they missed, when did it start? Mainly for adults as well. People with pain who have suffered for years, recurring pain. You've got to take them back to pretty much the first years of life, because that's predominantly when the causes were happening, because this is a very intelligent system. So let's go back to the first physiological function of breathing. If it's done incorrectly, if the baby sleeps with its mouth open, it's not going to get full development of the brain, because at this point what's building is then they breastfed or they're bottle fed. What happens is now tongue posture starts developing, but they have no teeth at this point, so swallowing develops. But at this time, the digestion is also connected to the swallowing and the tongue posture. Now, they don't have teeth at this point, so breathing is done incorrectly. Swallowing has to be done incorrectly, okay, in terms of how the human design was created. From swallowing, what's next? Chewing. So now you get this crossbite, you get this long jaw line because of this overbite. Yeah, so now you end up with what's called postural problems. From the chewing, now you get the teeth.
Yeah.
Now you speak.
Yeah.
So if the baby misses these milestones, and this is what we're not getting to, is the causes of all these problems, because now we're drugging everyone. So individuals also now, the drug industries are also have a huge benefit, because my research is, for example, I have a couch. I bring you on the test you and everything. If no one uses that couch, Danny, what's the point of me having the couch? Well, there's a lot of research that's gone into the pharmaceutical world also. So we're just ending up with more and more of an epidemic. So I'm not against the drug industry at all. I have a lot of doctors. I have clients who are doctors, specialists, who come to see me, and even they say, why don't they teach us this in medical school? And I ultimately just say to them, look, you don't earn as much money if you knew how to get someone better. So, which isn't their doctors, they truly care, but it's the education given to them as doctors, which are predominantly led by sales reps.
How does one, so it's ever so interesting. I know that the gentleman that we interviewed on our last interview was a guy named Richie Norton, aka the Strength Temple on Instagram. And one of the things which led me to want to speak to him is he's an XPT life coach. An XPT life is a thing ran by a guy named Laird Hamilton. He's a famous big wave surfer, and his wife Gabby Reese. And those guys are kind of like you. Like, I don't quite know how to fully describe exactly what it is that they do, but I know their retreats look absolutely amazing, and I really want to go on one. And they were involved with a chap named Brian McKenzie, who they have a company called Power Speed Endurance. I paid to do a course of theirs, an online course, about nasal breathing. So I was learning quite a lot of the science behind nasal breathing. And on that course, they referenced that a lot of the problems that we have now related around breathing come from exactly what you just said. Well, that we don't breathe through our nose,
breathing,
which equals basically everything you just talked about. Is that like, is it really that? Can it really be that simple?
The thing is this body has the ability to reprogram. So you can update information anytime. You can change someone from depressed to happy, no problem. You can take someone with severe back pain for 18 years like sciatica, and then all of a sudden they don't have the back pain anymore. And I always say it's not me doing the curing, and I say this from day one. I say I assist in the curing. What I can create is immediate results, because it works at 190 meters per second. You can get immediate results from people, and that we can now prove that through neurology anyway, through neuroscience. Now, the problem is, though, it only becomes permanent if they make the changes. If they don't continue making the changes, they can see the physio, they can have the operation, but nothing changed in the brain, so their action is automatic. So the software runs the... Does that make sense? So nothing changed in the software program. So it just constantly loops. So its main priority is survival and protection against danger and balance. That's all it knows. It has no idea how to make you happy, sad, upset, in pain. It doesn't know any of that. It only knows balance and survival. So if we go back to the first physiological milestones of the first 12 months, that system is actually called the stomatonatic system. So it's actually in science, this is actually the milestones it takes. It's a connected system. You can't separate anything. But we've separated it all.
So am I right in saying that one of the first things we can do at home is breathe in and out through our nose?
Breathe in and out through your nose, but I would make this, I'd go one step further. I would say have trigger pointers. So what I say to my, say individuals who suffer with anxiety, asthma, any forms of digestive pain, any postural dysfunction, is don't ever try to bring the posture back and force it back, because breathing is subconscious. It's an automatic program, exactly like posture. So you can't train the muscle for it. You can, but it takes years. Whereas if you had triggers on a conscious level, where what I say to him is have stickers, like green stickers, in every single room that has your focal point, that reminds you to breathe through the nose. Now it becomes subconscious, because it was conscious, because it reminds you. Eventually, there's no sticker, but you'll see that there's a sticker there everywhere. Even a sign that's green, because you had green stickers, would remind you to breathe. So it becomes subconscious programming. A lot like what the advertising world use. They keep hitting you with these triggers. Well, it's the only way we can reprogram the subconscious program. There's a particular red that everyone knows is Coca-Cola now, don't they? Do you know what I mean? That's it. That's
so breathing in and out through your nose.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the very first seminars that you went and did for a mutual friend of ours, one of my former instructors. Shout out to Paul Mansfield.
Yes.
You came and did a seminar for him.
Yeah.
And you would, I remember you asking everyone just to breathe. And I can remember sitting there thinking, I've got this sorted.
Yeah.
I know what he's going to say. And I still managed to do it wrong. But I remember hearing recently about, it used to be that adults were told to belly breathe, but then it's a breath wave, isn't it? Because adults from the belly deep into the bottom of the lungs, and then it comes up because blah 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 blah. But so an obvious simple piece of advice then for people at home, and this is cool because I like what you've just said. Green stickers,
or pink or red,
favorite colour.
It's a trigger,
So to remind you to breathe in and out through your nose.
Yep, so you'd have it in the office, you'd have it in the house, you'd have it in every single room, you'd have it in the car. Anywhere where where it will remind you, because now it becomes repetitive. You can't just do this the once.
Yeah.
Just because the individual at the seminar said, because most seminars, they read self-help books, nothing changes.
Online courses.
The conscious brain will learn and take the information in, but the subconscious, now we know, runs us 95% of the time. And there's only 3 ways you can train the subconscious. There is no other way.
Go on then.
So the 3 ways, the first one is, they say the first 7 years of life it trains the subconscious, because they're in what's called a theta state. So it's a low energy frequency. So it means they're in and out of, but they're in and out of sleep constantly. So babies predominantly sleep a lot. So that's one great way. So you're in the theta state, and then after theta you hit the delta state. Just before sleep you hit theta. So that's between 1 to 7 years is when the brain's developing. So the first 3 years the right brain is developing, and then from 3 to 6 the left brain, and then it goes backwards and forwards and right to left. But that then all depends on the cross-crawling pattern. So if the baby doesn't crawl now and misses the milestone of crawling, well, they're going to definitely end up dyslexic, dyspraxic, because they didn't get the integration between the 2 hemispheres.
And you're saying, I mean, like, even I now, I'm going to have a moment of cynicism. Definitely. So if a baby doesn't crawl...
If a baby doesn't crawl for long enough,
yeah,
guaranteed they'll have a hemispheric dominance.
Okay.
So they will definitely either read words backwards, balance will be slightly off, because the brain wasn't developed and it missed the milestone of cross-patterning.
Okay.
Because the right arm and left leg, that's the network pattern to control one part of the brain.
Okay.
So that's the pattern it takes. So if you have problems on this side, you're guaranteed you're going to get problems on this side. It's just the way the pattern works.
My left foot sticks out on my hip and I have all my issues on my right arm. Okay, anyway.
It's quite normal.
Okay, so tracking back. Oh my God. 3 ways to train the subconscious. One is 0 to 7.
So from 0 to 7, if obviously they're conditioned and you have what's called primitive reflex points, which neurologists now have known that there's only 72 of them. If they continue after the year, predominantly 12 months, and they continue, most adults have the primitive reflexes active, which means they're positive, which means that the body's constantly in a state of stress.
Okay, start again.
So, for example, from the first 7 years, the subconscious mind gets programmed.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, they have what's called primitive reflexes. Human beings have primitive reflexes.
Okay.
Most of this goes into adulthood as well. So people with anxiety, let's say, they have what's called a fear paralysis reflex, which is active in them. So if I go boo to you,
okay,
well, that should not happen.
What, past a certain age, or?
Yeah, so okay. I would say predominantly from 0 to 1, that should be gone.
And what about the idea that that's like a evolutionary response?
Yeah, but then they're constantly in the room with the lion. Always stressed, always stressed, always stressed, always stressed, because they're not in any physical danger. So this is where now the brain has 2 limitations. But let's go back to the subconscious first. Okay, number 1, the subconscious first 7 years. The second way it learns is through repetitive.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
So if you do something repeated,
yeah,
you can't just say, I'm not going to have chocolate today because I'm on a diet. It doesn't work, because
yeah,
you're talking to programs that you just can't turn off. But you can feed it a new program.
Yeah. I remember you saying this to me. Don't try and delete an old program. Feed a new program.
Yeah, feed a new one. So create a new habit, or a new saying, a new language.
I think that's a really important point to make, though, and to emphasize, because I think a lot of that is just ingrained in us as human beings in 2019. That okay, I'm giving up chocolate for Lent, or in my new year, I'm. It's like, what is it now? Stoptober is the sober October. Sorry. Yeah, so let's give up. All of these things are about giving stuff
for
up,
30 days,
up, rather than new program. So rather than having chocolate, don't have chocolate. You'd say have something else instead, wouldn't you?
Or if you want the chocolate, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, if we're using it as a diet restriction, now it gets to 3 o'clock. What are you going to want? It's chocolate. So the brain, the way the subconscious works, it's 95% in control.
Okay.
So you only have a 5% chance of being conscious.
Yeah.
This is why the way you learn that, you had to be conscious of it in the beginning. And then eventually it becomes subconscious.
Yeah.
So you can override any program, but the easiest way to do it is repeatedly create the new program.
You know, as far as coaching goes, like, because I know that you obviously are a personal trainer as well, etc., etc. Like, you know, I remember another old instructor of mine, shout out John Jepson, used to say to me when I was learning to be a coach, the easiest way to teach somebody nothing is to try and teach them everything. And as a martial arts instructor, you know, let's say, for example, a child comes to me anywhere from the ages of 3 or 4 up to something like 7, 8. In those, like, younger years, if I try and teach somebody what is a big part of Wado karate, a kata, trying to teach them all of the aspects of the first move, they're never going to learn even the first move, let alone the 20-something odd moves that are in the first kata. How do you balance that up with these kinds of things, that it's important to develop a habit the right way, but accepting there are going to be things that you forget when you take into account the fact that you've only got 5% control of changing it if you develop a bad habit versus developing a good habit? How do you factor that into your coaching? Do you try and teach people more up front so that they learn more, or do you just accept that?
No. I always say to them, do step 1 first, and only then I'll move you on to step 2.
Okay, fair enough.
So until they've step 1, you could not move them on to step 2. If you give them 3 steps...
Because you coach kids as well a lot now, don't you? That's been one of your recent focuses.
Yeah, so I've just created a new program which includes all this kids conditioning. So I'll have like autistic kids now, and I'm working with parents now with the kids, and just really making them more emotional, because kids with autism predominantly have right hemispheric brain weakness, which controls the emotions. So they could be very logical. They'll remember bus routes, and they'll remember the names of all the astronauts or the planets, and no problem in whatever order. But there's an emotional disengagement, which means their left brain dominant, which controls the logic.
Okay. So tracking back, the third way that the subconscious brain learns.
Deep trauma. So I can shock you to death, and you'll remember that date. And you'll remember.
I always used to use the example, if you look back and try and remember your birthdays,
it's emotional.
You remember the birthdays that were either extremely good or extremely bad.
Yeah, but also you look at the birth. It's the first time you're pretty much going to experience close to death.
Yeah.
So you remember the date, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, so you got onto that by me asking you, we talked about what things can people do to try and avoid the doctor, which is something I definitely want to do, you know, touch wood for the go and see the doctor as few times as possible. Yeah. So we kind of, we're in agreement that one of the predominant things to do is to be breathing in and out through your nose. In fact, that reminds me, I was going to ask you, consciously in the day, you have the stickers all over where you like, but one of the things that I've learned recently is that if you're a mouth breather through the night when you sleep, this is indicative of a problem. But you can't control whether or not you breathe in and out through your mouth during the night, would be my current opinion.
Okay. So
improve that when I'm sleeping.
So do you believe the brain can learn any skill it wants to learn?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so in that case, the question would be, how do I teach my brain to breathe in and out through its nose while I sleep?
I always recommend place the tongue on the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
And condition that. Also, when you train that, because it's in times of thought, that's your time with yourself, put a little bit of water in your mouth.
So you do this when you train?
And when you're training. So what you would do is I give it to people who obviously are like you in terms of mouth breathing.
Yeah, 100% I mouth breathe.
So what I do is I recondition, put a little bit of water in the mouth, and I say, run with it. And if you can run 100 meters with that, brilliant. By the end of it, you're going to be almost puking up because you panic. Yeah. But it's to calm the nervous system, which the reason why they say breathe through the nose is because the hairs on the nose are connected to what are called the turbinates. Yeah. And that is what's connected to the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's the only way you switch on the relaxation
So it's
system.
not necessarily the shallow breathing that's the thing that causes the fight and flight, it's the...
Posture. If I collapse you, you can't now breathe, so you can't get the gas exchanges between oxygen and carbon dioxide anyway.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because I've just collapsed your posture. So with someone who, say, in deep depression, let's say, just look at their posture. But in counselling or psychiatry or psychology, posture's never addressed. The GP, no one ever addresses posture when it comes to asthma. No one ever looks at posture. The GP don't look at posture when it comes to digestive problems.
Okay.
But you can't breathe. So if the first physiological function to creating everything was breathing, and you have a posture like this, how could you have correct digestion?
Shoulders.
You can't get gas exchanges. So there has to be a digestive problem.
So am I putting a second sticker up now then to tell me to pull my shoulder, to get my shoulders back?
I say to people, just extend the abs. So just extend them. So it's a difference between almost like 2 millimeters.
Yeah.
But extend the abs. So don't pull the shoulder. Just extend the abs, because this now opens and stops the collapse and compression for the digestive system to do its work.
Okay. See, I told everybody listening he's Gandalf the White. Okay, and one of the things that you and I chatted about quite a bit before coming on was your passion for trying to address posture.
Yeah. So when I have someone who's committing suicide or deep depression or anxiety or anything like that, the first thing I correct is instantly is posture. Reason why is because if everything communicates electrically and chemically, I correct posture, which if you ever look at the research done into posture, just having your posture in this position where you're in an extended position with shoulders back elevates testosterone by 25% and it decreases cortisol, the stress hormone, by 20%. And this was a lady called Amy Cuddy who did the study on posture.
Okay.
And if you have forward flex posture, you elevate cortisol by 25%. So me in talking therapy, let's say, I have someone who sits like this, well, already they have a chemical imbalance, which means they have electrical imbalance as well. So their body and energy system is completely deprived. So immune system then gets suppressed because everything is connected. Nothing is separate, but we've separated everything.
So in terms of having something to take away from today, which is cool, number one, discussing breathing. Number two, importantly, discussing posture, because they're both very, very interconnected. Those really good starting points, I think you'd agree.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to ask, just because I don't know if anyone's picking up listening to you, or if it's just something that I've got because I've known you for so long, but like, I reckon if anyone came to you with like the latest biohack, you would roll your eyes at them and then go, look, well, blah, 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 blah. But that being said, like what, for example, would be your nutritional principles then? I mean, I know that's going off on a completely different, it feels to me like a bit of a different tangent right now, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay, so obviously I've done nutrition. The system in how they teach you nutrition would tell you about the foods and the phytonutrients and the antioxidants and the vitamins and the minerals, and now we're on this deep supplementation program. So in terms of nutrition, everything, I work with energy. Obviously I've been brought up from a young age, but energy for me is what this body is predominantly made up of. So if we're blessed with a system like you are, Danny, like myself, where we don't have any misfortune, we've got our eyesight, we've got our legs, arms, we've got our hearing, we've got absolutely everything. So we're blessed with everything. Yeah. So number one, we have to be forever grateful for that. But let's look at energy. This was a system that you were blessed with that was positive. You've never had to think about anything, digestion, breathing, blood, nothing. It's done it automatically, agreed? So if this is a system that knows how to keep balance, then what makes it go wrong? Because this is a system that's positive. It's energy, and it's positive energy that you're blessed with. So if I keep drip feeding it negative, eventually that positive system becomes negative. Yeah. But now if it's become negative, if I drip feed it positive, it eventually becomes positive. Yeah. So nutrition, the body gives you a feedback, because energy doesn't discriminate between positive or negative. Exactly the same with water. If I pour water on some flowers, or I pour water on some poisonous plant, they both grow. The water doesn't discriminate between that being bad and that being good. Yeah. Energy is exactly the same. It doesn't discriminate.
Okay.
But if I feed it negative, even if the society has said broccoli is a superfood or spinach is a superfood, the biofeedback from the system will always tell you. You'll feel lethargic on the diet that you're on. You'll feel bloatedness. You might get, well, now we have this whole vegan agenda that's going on. Yeah. So, you know, for some people that will work brilliantly, but they're also coming from a terrible diet from the start. So now we're consuming veganism, which is cheese that looks like cheese, smells like cheese, and tastes like cheese, but isn't cheese, because they're made in laboratories. Mm-hmm. So anything made in a laboratory does not agree with your system, because it's a copy of the material that your body's predominantly made up of. Same with vitamin C. So supplements, let's look at vitamin C. Vitamin C, they sell as ascorbic acid. So Baraka, they say it boosts your immune system. Yeah. Vitamin C, yeah. So if you look at vitamin C and you break it down, it's comprised of 4 components. Ascorbic acid is only one. So how do you think your body makes up the rest of the vitamin C? Well, it has to strip it from itself to realign the extra input of ascorbic acid that you didn't take as balance. I've spoken to biomedical scientists on this, and they've even confirmed, and these guys sell to GPs and hospitals, and they said they could never copy what's in nature. It won't ever happen. So the body breaks itself down. So over time, vitamin C now, ascorbic acid now leads to scurvy, but this shows up in time, doesn't show up straight away. Vitamin D, component of 3, D1, D2, D3. So we get the sunlight and the rest. The other 2 are in nutrition. Mm-hmm. So we get predominantly greens that contain D1 and D2. So D3, cholecalciferol, and ergocalciferol. The problem is all 3 of them elements have to be in balance. You cannot supplement with these. It breaks the time. But with science, everything shows up later down the line. Yeah. Does that make sense? So now we've got more fitness professionals, more supplementations in the world, but we've got more sickness in the world than ever before. Yeah. So the results for me then is always number one. I look at something, I look at the results, and I just stick with the results. If I'm getting positive, I will not change from that.
So from a health perspective, let's say you wanted to talk about, or we wanted to talk about nutrition, what might be your 3 pillars? Like, forget everybody else, like you personally. Okay, so if anyone wanted to go, wow, yeah, that's that guy knows what he's talking about. Yeah. What does he do? Yeah. What are the 3 things that you follow?
Water intake, number 1. Yeah. Hydration always, even before food, because your body's 70% water. Most people are dehydrated, even when I have with pain, injuries. If you look at pain itself, most of them are dehydrated. Yeah. So I would always say water. Always number 1.
Tell people your formula for water.
I work out with a formula, so a litre of water to 40 pounds of body weight. I always consume. So 1 litre to 40 pounds
per 40 pounds of body weight.
Now this is obviously for kids up until the age of 40. Then I would say a litre of water to 50 pounds of body weight. Okay. Yeah.
And when people work that out, right? I'm guessing that the majority of people that would work that out are going to go, whoa.
Yeah. So you get a lot of medical sort of students predominantly say, oh, but it's going to neutralize the minerals, the salt intake, and I say to them, well, just look at the results for that individual. If it's a negative and it's too much water, their body will tell them anyway.
How does it tell them?
Because they would get a sense of fatigue.
Okay.
So water contains, if you look at where oxygen comes from, your body's predominantly oxygen. So we talk about breathing. But what's another way you can get oxygen in?
I'm assuming through water.
Through water. But how does it come through water? Because the seas they're called diatoms. So they don't come from trees like we've been led to believe. They come from the sea. That's why that's where oxygen comes from. The trees absorb diatoms, and it absorbs carbon dioxide, but it gives us oxygen. Okay. So when you live in an oxygenated system, well, now your cells, you look at the frequency and you look at the negative charge on the red blood cell, they repel. So they're constantly repelling. So your energy is always brilliant. But the amount of energy that your body needs, you can't increase energy or decrease energy. You can transfer energy, negative, positive, but you can never increase or decrease. That's a myth. That's not fact.
So number 1 is 1 litre water per 40 pounds of body weight. What would be the second thing?
Second, I would obviously nutrient-dense foods, water-rich foods, fruit and vegetables, 100%, predominantly making most of your nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the guy or girl that's going to sit there and say, I need 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to build muscle at the gym?
Right, okay. So,
because that guy's me as well. Or it's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's true. The only problem is with too much heavy protein, especially because that's the way it's marketed. You're literally taking the dead food of an animal, and you're placing that in your system.
Well, I want to make a clear point to people, like, because you're not a vegan.
I'm not a vegan.
You're not someone that's going to sell this podcast and say everyone should be a vegan.
No, never.
But that's a vegan principle, if ever I've heard one.
No, because I'm not.
Or it's akin to one.
This is nature cycle. Obviously, we if you study, let's look at Weston Price, two explorers, Weston Price and Pottinger's work. Okay, they studied the longest living tribes in the world. There was only 12, so they went to the Maoris, the Hertzies in India, Maoris in New Zealand. The Japanese tribe as well. I can't remember the name, but it went to all over the world. There was 12 tribes, and they never found a single non-meat
What were their names
tribe.
Again? Those two explorers?
Pottinger and Dr. Weston Price and Dr. Pottinger.
Okay.
So one was a dentist and one was a doctor, but they were also explorers. But they went and they studied the longest living tribes in the world, and they didn't find a single non-meat eater. So they went to the Inuit.
You mean they found you say they didn't find a single non-meat eater?
Yeah, so they were all meat eaters. Every single one, but some might have just had fish, but in small amounts. Some might have had other wild animals, because that's all they had. It depends from which sort of area or which region they were from, determined how their body had evolved.
Okay.
So ancestral programming, if we go back to now, you'll be blessed.
So your main sources of protein are what?
I would vary mine, Danny. I would have fish, I would have chicken, I would have red. I vary them, but I listen to what my body feels good on. I don't look at the nutrition in terms of this is good for you.
And I should point out to the people, granted, it could be argued that maybe you're gifted in this sense. Yeah. But for the people that can't see you, you're a shorter guy, but you're very well built. Big shoulders, big arms, stocky, big legs. You're a strong dude, as we've already discussed. Yeah. But has your nutrition changed much since, for example, you were a powerlifter?
Yeah,
or?
Because 13 years ago when I was powerlifting, Danny, I was predominantly I was coached from a powerlifter. So the way the powerlifters was, get your calories in and let's.
Did you follow that?
Not because I felt like rubbish. Okay. I had skin breakouts, and I was thinking, this is no good, but I'm getting stronger. Okay. And when you're competing and you're in competition mode, you can see these results and it's negative, but you're also thinking, I've got to get I've got to get the result in that competition. Okay. I want to become number one. So your mindset changes from health to now focusing on something a bit more extreme. So health gets put aside slightly.
And nowadays
whereas now I'm promoting health, so I'm going, you've got to be healthy. So I'm changing people from what the dermatologists have given them, steroid creams, and you're taking people from Crohn's disease and celiacs and thyroid problems, and then you're correcting them. So now the body's correcting itself. I'm not correcting them. I assist in the correction. They make the changes. The body adapts. Yeah.
So one of the things which I know has been talked about more and more over the last, I say it's been talked about more and more over the last, let's say 5 or 10 years, but it could simply be that I've been personally more aware of it the last 5 or 10 years, is the idea that as human beings, we find it far more difficult now to get what we need in terms of vitamins, minerals, micronutrients, blah, 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 from both our day-to-day lives and our diets. So for example, vitamin D, we spend far more time as a human race indoors now, over computer screens and so on and so forth. And we're not out getting our face in the sunlight like we used to. So that's why there is more talk of supplementing with vitamin D. That, I don't personally, and again, this is just to be completely wrong, but bother that much that if I get a potato, I don't peel it. Like, because I know there's a lot of nutrients in the skin, and if it's got some dirt on, I don't care, because I know there's nutrients in the dirt as well. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's what you're predominantly made up of.
Yeah. Like, do you personally, for your own health and for the health that you advise your clients and so on and so forth, someone comes to you and says, well, what about my supplements, Seb? You know, what do you say to them on those things? So
supplementation, then, you know, some people will benefit from them. I'm not saying they won't, but not over a long period of time. People understand this energy system. Internally, everything is growing and dying. So we have this catabolic process and this anabolic process. So if we look at blood tests, for instance, the moment they take the individual's blood test, the doctor, and they show an imbalance of thyroid dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, what you've got to also answer is that blood test was taken because that guy didn't sleep the night before, or his wife had left him the night before, or his mother had passed, or his son had an argument. The body's in a stressful state. So when they're taking blood tests, our bodies are constantly evolving, but they're also breaking down. Agreed? Mm-hmm. In most people's cases in today's world, they're breaking down because we don't have the sleep imbalance, we don't have the recovery aspect, we just go train. We eat like we've got to fit in 2,000 calories when we don't even need that, because the stomach, if you looked at it, it's only small. 2,000 calories to fit in, well, that's the most amazing business model in the world, because now the feed industries, if I said to everyone, you've got to now consume 2,000 calories.
And the rest.
And not listen to you, Danny, and not listen to your body, because you've lived in this body for 20 odd years, 30 years, but I've only known you for 10 months as an expert, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to run your body. And we've forgotten, because we're not giving people the power to go, you've got to listen. It will give you a feedback. It doesn't just go wrong when you're blessed with such a positive system.
That's where most people struggle, though, wouldn't you agree?
That's where they struggle. That's when they come to me, the energy system, and then when I show them the energy, how the body can't lie. This system does not know how to lie. It's not blessed with that. Because when people lie, what do they test? Which organ do they test? The heart. Yeah. So an ECG, the electroencephalogram, that's what they test. So why don't they test for someone lying? Because they have to be in coherence. So what's anxiety? The heart and brain's not in coherence. So the heart has now, they've identified, they're called sensory neurites, 40 neurites, the same as what's in the brain. But that heart is the first thing that when you watch on a newborn, they never look at the brain, they never look at the liver, the kidneys, they're always looking at the heart rate. Because if that goes up or it goes down, they know there's problems. Mm-hmm. Well, what do we listen to? The heart always comes up when you tell a lie, and you've got to live with a lie.
Okay.
So these are systems that we're blessed with, but we don't listen to them. So when I'm muscle testing you and stuff, and I say, okay, is this emotional?
And muscle testing, for people that aren't aware, I end up lying down on the couch, the massage bed, whatever you want to call it, and you're having me hold my arm out to the side, and you're applying downwards pressure, and I'm lifting up.
Yeah, so you're meeting my pressure.
Meeting your pressure, whether that be up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, whatever. Yeah. And you're then testing different areas of the spine, the body, the hips,
I'm
whatever.
testing the electrical input.
And you can do this with me holding a phone or a particular piece.
Well, everything is energy. So I show you, if you put any energy in the system, whether it's negative or positive, the body will either strengthen up or it will weaken. It has no way of lying, because its sole priority is to continue building itself and stay strong. It wants to keep balance as best as possible without any effort. So when we're bombarding it with foods that don't agree with our systems, well, there has to be a negative. There's got to be consequences to these actions. The body doesn't just, you're not unlucky, or you're not blessed with the wrong genes or none of that stuff. You've just got to learn and understand what the feedback is from the body. The energy system doesn't discriminate.
From a physical perspective, Seb, what kinds of things do you value on like a daily, weekly, monthly basis to take care of yourself? Because I know if there's anybody I do know that takes care of himself, it's you.
I would always say improve your senses. Okay. So eyesight, vision, that has everything to do with posture. Feet, the skin of your feet is what you keep upright on. Okay. I would say stimulate the skin of your feet. every single day, because you have what's called the Babinski reflex, and for most people that have ticklish feet, well, predominantly most of them would always have knee or back.
Ticklish feet is good or bad?
No, it's bad.
Okay.
They will always have back problems because they're on their feet always, but they're so sensitive that the brain sends the feet messages and the feet send the brain messages. But if that reflex isn't gone, if you study a baby, if I do that to the baby, it shuts its hand. It's called the palmar reflex. That should have been gone.
And when you say if I do that to a baby, it shuts its hand, what you just did,
it shuts
its can't see, is you ran your finger from
so up
along your hand.
Yeah. Well, in adults, that's active. So what happens is they have poor motor control, but that baby's building its motor control, so it holds the pen correctly now. Whereas if they don't, they start to hold it wrong. So until you get rid of that reflex, you can't really build. So shoulder pain, elbow pain predominantly comes from the skin of the where it's gripping.
So stimulate your feet.
Stimulate your feet. Stimulate your eyes. Breathe in. Number one. In terms of stimulating your eyes, Danny, I would say eye exercises. A real good one, it's called the saccade reflex, which you do with the baby, especially in its first years, and that's the fastest way, the prefrontal cortex, for them to start integrating the right and left hemispheres of the brain. It grows outward, you see. So it's a great one where you put your thumbs out in front of you, and then all you're doing is you're looking up. It's like a saccade game, and that's all you're doing just to train the eyes. But that
so I just hold my thumbs out
in front of you, and you just look side to side, up and down, across, diagonal, and that's all you're doing.
Okay.
And
that will do what?
It trains the eyes, so it rebuilds the eyes. So people with glasses, let's say, I would say, well, you know, my theories on this is I've had people with glasses, they no longer need glasses. Brandon is one of them.
Brandon Patros,
and he's been wearing them
guy
from the
I used to work with,
he no longer needs them, and he just couldn't believe it. But there's also emotion.
So I've been coming to you for 10 years with these things on my face, and you haven't tried and chain me out of them.
Well, no, you always walk away saying, you always say, what are you doing now? And you almost like go blank.
How dare you? And like the common buzzwords and things nowadays, like I'm finding it curious that you haven't brought any of them up. I don't know whether or not it's because you don't do it, or you do it so naturally that you don't think about it. Like, a lot of people nowadays, we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about meditation, we're talking about what's my sleep like, so on and so forth. Are those, have you not mentioned them because they're a given? Like what?
No,
or because these other things are more important, or you think people don't think about them because they don't?
Well, for me, it's normal. So I every single morning I wake up, and every single night I would default my kids and I will ask them what they're grateful for. Tell me what you're grateful for today. And they would think of 3 things that they're grateful for. So their default program is thinking about all the great things that they go to sleep with, not all the bad things that their teacher had done or the friend had done or wherever. So it re-defaults them back straight away. Every single morning we do exactly the same before we have our breakfast. What is it you're grateful for today? And this is something we encourage every single day. And I'll give you a story. I had a deaf teacher and a mental health leader from a school recently, because I've gone.
You've been doing a lot.
I created that video, and it just went haywire, and schools from all over the UK now.
We'll have to try and find a way to. We'll try and share that video for you. So carry on.
So I went to this school, and it was all on mindfulness. My mindfulness is I've called the assembly train your brain. And it's all about understanding how the brain works. So these kids had no idea that they had happy chemicals. So before I even done the assembly, I had asked, describe an emotion you feel right now, and I would write it on the board. And this was in front of all the teachers. And there would be like misery and anger and low moods and happiness, enjoyment. So the ones that had the negative emotion, I took them through a series of exercise, let's say, but also language, so positive language, and this exercise for just a minute. And I says, now I want you to describe the emotion now. And every single one went from anger, misery, low moods, all said, I feel happy. And I says, what just happened? And I had this picture of this brain, and I says, here's what's happened. I says, you have these happy chemicals in your brain, and they're waiting to be released, and the only way you can release them is through movement and saying all these nice words. And what happens is,
what nice words were they? Like, as in you just
love life. So I just said, half of the room shout love and the other shout life, and they would scream love, life, and the teachers were going crazy. And then all of a sudden, I've put it on the board and says, now how do you feel now? How has this changed the emotion? And it instantly changed the emotion, which proved to the teachers as well that, number one, they weren't educated of happy chemicals. They didn't even know they existed. And then I had this.
What is this happy chemical?
So you have different ones. The pharmaceutical, the doctor will give it you in a form of pill. So someone with low moods, they give you serotonin.
Yes.
You get norepinephrine, you get BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, you know, dopamine now. Yeah. But all these have a way of releasing naturally from your body anyway. Yeah. So dopamine is released from the midbrain.
Is it hot or cold that you can use to release some of these as well, right? This is true?
Cold.
So cold therapy releases which one?
Cold releases
serotonin
and dopamine.
Yeah,
but you can't separate them, Danny. So it'll release norepinephrine.
I just remember hearing one.
But you can't separate them. So they will talk about one part because that's the one part. Yeah. But it's all a connected system. If I release them chemicals, all you've got to understand in the brain, it's molecules and proteins, they combine and it creates what's called neurogenesis. And that is what releases the happy chemicals. It's as simple as that.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. And the last thing I've been asking people, but I feel like you probably covered this already, so if there's anything else you haven't said, like...
meditation.
If anyone hasn't listened to you, and by then, you, to get to us today, to do this interview, your car journey should have been in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
How long was it?
2.5 hours.
2.5. Caught in traffic.
Yeah.
Stuck behind the vehicles you see on motorways that are super long. You can't get past them.
And there was a major accident.
Yeah. Right. So it's the kind of thing that stereotypically, and I'll put my hand up, I would have been one of these people who would have left you feeling some form of stress.
Yeah.
You got in my car.
Yeah.
I was way more stressed than you.
I know.
Bubbly. You are the happiest guy I know.
And everyone says that. Honestly,
that's not you bragging either, because that's not you. You're not a bragger or whatever. But you have to be the happiest guy I know.
It's, you know what, Danny, I always say, I tell you what, prayer and meditation is really important. Let's talk about that first and I'll explain why. Obviously, I've trained myself almost to, it's a default state. There's nothing that can make me angry, upset, absolutely nothing. Because I say this to everyone, the moment you've learned to accept negative experiences in life, you don't need to be positive. The moment you've accepted negative experiences in life, you don't need to be positive.
Yeah.
And that's people's problems.
Yeah.
Is we're chasing positive, but they haven't even accepted the negative experiences of life. So the moment them triggers and buttons are pressed again, the negative experience is reminded, recalled up, subconscious mind 95% of the time runs, and they default to a program that requires them into a negative emotion. But I also do what's called energy psychology, Danny. So when this was done on me, it's never even worth having negative emotions. Not worth it. It suppresses the immune system that bad that it leads to illnesses over time.
What does?
Negative emotion.
Okay, suppresses the immune system.
Immune system. So people who are more in states of depression, anxiety, worry, fear, anything like that, they're more likely to get ill than people who are happier. That's just it. But the way I show that to people is through muscle testing. So you can't deny it. So I'll take someone who's been in states of anxiety or fear or depression or whatever, and I've changed them within seconds.
Kind of going to wrap things up there, because I know more we could talk about.
Yeah, you talk on one.
I know. So what I wanted to do is, I know that it's really, really difficult for people necessarily to kind of track you down. You as an individual, you're located kind of in the middle of the country, you live in Sheffield, you have a gym now, fitness improvement therapy Sheffield, Fit Sheffield. You're on Instagram.
Yeah.
Your Instagram account is
Fit Sheffield, or you could go to my Seb_Seb.
Yeah, Seb said.
It's pretty much the same thing.
So Seb said is because every see you ends up telling their partner, they'll say the words, well, Seb said. And it just became a thing.
And that's actually true. And that was from Keith Curl, a former England player. And he was like, you just need to create Seb said. And his wife came to me first. And then he was like, why do you keep going on about Seb? And then he came. And then that was, that's how it got created.
So people can track you down on Instagram. I mean, I would encourage anybody that's within like, if you're within a couple of hours of Sheffield and you've got any kind of problems, I would be tracking you down. As difficult it is to pin you down nowadays, because you kind of stepped away and you're investing your time and your efforts into lots of other areas.
Kids, really.
Yeah,
educate kids, because that's where the prevention lies.
But what we'll probably do, I think would be useful, is somehow, some way, we'll get like a listener Q&A, and we'll get some questions in, and it'll be an Ask Seb. And we'll get you back on the podcast and we'll talk again, because
pleasure.
You're one of the shining lights in my life, and
you're mine.
Super grateful to know you, of course. But thanks so much for coming on
and
giving us your time, mate. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is Dan Ball from Wellness Academy. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. You'll find a link on the episode notes. Just tap or swipe over the cover art. You'll also see some offers from our sponsor, Lichfield Apart Hotel. Find them at lichfieldaparthotel.com, and we hope you'll support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe. Another way to support us is to answer a short survey at yourwellnessacademy.co.uk/survey and tell us what wellness topics you'd like to hear about. I'm your host, Dan Ball. Our producer is Scott Towns, created by our executive producer, Ben Heathcote, for Wellness Academy.